Hi everyone, and I would just like to take this opportunity to give you a warm welcome to the University of the West of Scotland for your first year of studies in computer games development. And I hope you have a very nice time this year. Well, no one is having a nice time this year, quite clearly, but in future years, the future will be brighter, I'm sure. And I apologise for us having to meet sort of virtually like this in these unprecedented times, but unfortunately that's what this pandemic has sort of led to. So it's your first year, and this is a small presentation so that you know exactly what you're doing in terms of your modules and your course. And I have elected for a Super Mario Odyssey theme because I've just ordered a Nintendo Switch and a ton of Mario games, and I'm super excited. So we've got the course is a Bachelor of Science, as you can see from the top, and that will be indicative of the qualification that you get at the end should you complete the degree, and you will complete the degree. Then you'll be a Bachelor of Science. And of course you get various different sort of variations of that. You get BD, Bachelor of Divinity, BEng, Bachelor of Engineering, BA, Bachelor of Arts, but you will be more or less a sort of recognised scientist in your field once you complete your degree. So I am Thomas Haney, and moving on to the next slide, if it allows me to. Okay, so the content of the presentation. What's this really about? So what modules are you doing this year? I want to make absolutely crystal clear. I'm even quite happy to phone round all of you. There should be about 19 students in the first year of computer games development this year. There may be more, but just to make sure you know exactly what modules you're doing and who's who. All the lecturers introducing you to them and making you familiar with them, and how things are going to work this year, because obviously it's going to be primarily remote and online delivery, and we'll have to think of a few creative ways to deliver things and creative ways of marking assessments, etc. Once we do eventually get back into the campus, because I have a ton of Star Wars memorabilia that I'm just not leaving there. There are some slides on where everything actually is as well. So that will be quite useful for later on, hopefully. So who am I again? I'm Dr. Thomas Haney. I'm the year leader for year one, year leader for year 4 of computer games development as well. So if you get to your honours level, I should be there if I'm alive. I'm also the program leader of the entire program as well. I'm a lecturer on the first, second and fourth year modules, and I do sort of dip in and out of the third year modules as well to assist with them. You may call me Tommy, Thomas, or Tom, whatever, as long as you get that noise in there, like a little meerkat. So that's good. That's what I look like, just to be absolutely certain, even though you can see me already, but I'm not lying there. And that's me next to Pennywise the Clown in my office when I was allowed into my office. Okay, I'll oversee your entire degree at the university, so that's quite important to know. My contact details are as follows, and it's important that you sort of maintain a very close relationship with your year leaders and your module coordinators, and particularly myself as well. So there's my email address. I get an awful lot of emails, so I do try to respond to them as quickly as I can. But if that fails in any way, there is my mobile number there. I've given that this year due to these unprecedented times, and I've no difficulty with you giving me a call about anything, because you would be able to do so if I were to be in my office anyway. So you can call me from any point, Monday to Friday, 9 AM to 5 PM, even if it's an emergency or you're upset about something. The weekend, it's not as if I do anything else apart from this job anyway. So the slightest issue, anything that's concerning you at all, feel free to pick up the phone and speak to me about it. I'm actually quite approachable, so it's okay. It'll be cool. I've got a LinkedIn profile as well there, so you can feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and that's another mechanism of communication as well. I'm also on Facebook as well, if you're wanting to befriend me there. I have no difficulties with that. Gets my numbers up. And I'm also on Discord as well, and there's my Discord sort of identifier. You'll be able to connect with me there, send me a friend request. and it's a picture of Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker this year. So the main thing to remember is I'm a mentor, a friend, and I'm there to guide you in the program. I'm also the program's supreme overlord, so I know absolutely everything that happens on it and absolutely everything that is said. I'm nearly omniscient. All the lecturers sort of talk to one another, and any slight issue that they have, they come to me with it. So eventually everything sort of, trickles down to myself anyway. So just to let you know that. Once again, that's what I look like, in case you didn't get it the first time. Okay, so the computer games development program and assessment regulations. I've put these up here so that you can familiarize yourself with the program specification and the assessment regulations. Now, I've done this specifically because there have been a few students that have been caught out with things like this. They seem to think that they're going to university in America and, I'll just make up the credits and do another course and take a psychology course and all that sort of thing. The thing to remember is that the program specification and the assessment regulations are more or less like a contract. Okay, so I mean, it does give you a fair amount of leeway to change things, etc., and to reset. There are 2 resets and a reattend in modules if you fail them the first time, and there are assessment regulations in place for that. But you've really got to familiarize yourself with these, because if you mess with the system too much, and what I mean by that is possibly not submitting assessments repeatedly for a module, you may find yourself being ushered out of the system, unfortunately. So do familiarize yourself with the program specification. Make sure you know all the modules that you're supposed to be passing, and make sure you know all about the assessment regulations, because these are more or less like contracts, as I say. And I do have people coming to my office saying, please let me back into the course. And it's never really up to me. It's never really up to me to let anyone into the course. And it's never really up to me to kick anyone out of the course either. It's all there in the assessment regulations and the program specification. So you've got to make sure that you know that. And it's beneficial if you do. So there's a small example of it there. And that's your first year, really. So there's all your core modules. You'll notice that they all have, I can do this little thing with a pen. What can I? Yes. You notice they all have credits, okay? Credits associated with them. And the credits system is a little bit all over the place. So you have the creative computing professional there, which is a 10 credit module, which will run for approximately 6 weeks. Then you have Introduction to Games Development, which is a 20 credit module, which will run for approximately 12 weeks. You then have Programming with Objects, which is a 30 credit module, which runs the entire length of the year, but worth more credits. Okay, so you've got to pass all of those core modules. You then have your optional modules as well. And you can, in fact, according to the regulations, fail an optional module and proceed to the next year with a deficit, but I wouldn't recommend it. But you cannot progress with core modules being failed, okay? So it's very, very important to familiarize yourself with that. The main thing I want to sort of draw your attention to there in that program specification are small things that catch students out, like they don't read the fine print. So to progress from SCQF level 7 to level 8, students are normally required to obtain 120 credits and pass all core modules. So in order to get a degree, you've got to get 120 credits at each level, level 7, 8, 9, and an honours degree 10. So you've just got to be very, very familiar with that, and don't leave yourself in a credit deficit. I'll try to make sure that that doesn't happen to anyone, but it is worthwhile familiarising yourself with these. I think according to the regulations, you can actually proceed with a 40 or a 50 credit deficit, even with a core module, providing that core module isn't a prerequisite to another core module at a higher level. So there's things like that on the program and the assessment regulations that you need to be a bit familiar with. So the main thing is just pass everything, and that shouldn't really be too difficult. So as I've said, all university degrees are modular, or all UWS degrees are modular. So there's generally 3 modules per term, or the equivalent of 3 modules per term. and we'll see exactly how those modules sort of transpire this year. So the two main terms there are two main terms, and then there is one currently for resets, catch-ups and placements, etc. So that's generally considered to be the summer. So October to January, there's going to be 12 weeks of classes. Generally, a consolidation week, all the classes will probably be online, and I seriously doubt that any one will be going into the campus this year. Certainly not for the computer games development modules. Now, when I say that, if we go back to, if we look at the slide before that, some of the modules I don't have control over because they in fact overlap with animation or computer animation arts. So you've got to make sure that you keep in contact with the module coordinator or the leader of the module to make sure you know how these things are actually being run. But I suspect that we won't be on the campus this year. So October to January is the first 12 weeks. Then February to May, same again, more or less. And then June to August is a catch-up, so that should be a reset period if you require it. And do make sure, if you have a reset, and I'll tell you all about that, if you find yourself with a reset, do make sure that you submit something for that reset again, and try to make up your credit. Okay, so modules contribute to your degree. There's 20 credits per full module. There are some 10 credit ones. There are some 30 credit ones, and there are some 40 credit ones as well through the entire course of your degree. So make sure you know exactly how much these credits are worth. Should be 120 each year. The honours module in year 4 is worth 40 credits. Programming with objects in this particular year, which you'll all be taking, is 30 credits and runs over the entire year as well. But we'll get to that later. But you've got to get 120 per year. Okay. The online access systems, I've put in a little link there about the digital skills and support, and more or less just taken all of the descriptions and fired them onto the slides there. So you get My Day, which is your student portal, which you should be able to access through that. You get My UWS, which is a virtual learning environment as well. Now, I think that this year, the first years at level 7 will be using the Aula system, and we've all been given emails about that and how to access it. Now, you should be able to start to see your modules in the fullness of time after the induction. So when the classes start on the 5th of October, the Aula site should begin to populate itself with all the material for your courses if they haven't been populated already. But we are supposed to be adopting a greater degree of hybrid communication this particular year. So what I mean by that is there would be a lot of videos, engagement, that sort of thing. So it should be on a weekly basis, more or less, and it shouldn't necessarily be all of the material given to you at one point. I'm sorry, I was distracted there by that big clock, the Paisley Abbey clock, or the Town Hall clock, I beg your pardon. So you've got self-service banner. This is where you get a record of everything, and you will find out your results of your assessments once they're put onto the self-service banner system. And that's where you confirm grades, request council tax exemptions, and register for graduation, register for modules. That's where it's all done. And that's how you actually know if you have resets or if you've passed everything, if everything is going well. And it should go well. The first year is really pretty easy. As long as you keep on top of it, everything's fine. You've got your student email as well. There's a link to the Aula system there that I mentioned. So you should be able to begin to access that fairly readily. So everything should sort of fall into place. All of your modules, level 7, should be over in the Aula system. So My UWS probably won't happen for you guys, or at least it shouldn't. So it's the Aula system you primarily work with, and then your My Day portal and the self-service banner system as well. And they're all for making sure you have a smooth experience. But the self-service banner one is really a very important one for your grades, council tax exemption and things like that, and enrolment. And then, of course, the aula is where you get all of your material, coursework material. Should be a lot of videos and engagement and quizzes, hopefully this year, in order to give you a better sort of hybrid experience in terms of pedagogy. All right. So your banner ID is your user identifier for access to the computers online. That's how you are identified during the entire course of your life at UWS. So it's probably best to sort of memorize that. You would normally get a student card, but that is the first question that anyone will ever ask you. What's your banner ID? What's your banner ID? What's your banner ID? When they're accessing the system to find out who you are, whether that's a query, whether you've contacted the hub, whether you've contacted myself. So make sure you know that. And then you've got all the sort of things, email and ITDS, so you can access your email system. All students should have access to all the sort of Microsoft products through their UWS account, and they should be able to access all of their email through that as well. There's also a wee ITDS campus induction video thrown in there, which should help you through things. How to print, as if any of us are ever going to need to print again. Even when printing was a good thing, we never did it. We're computing students, we barely print. I can barely remember the last time I really printed anything. It's all sort of digital copies, really. There's the hub at uws.ac.uk. And you can send an email to them if you're having any form of difficulties or have any queries. I would probably recommend just skipping them, because what happens is, if it's something they can't solve, they'll just sort of forward it to the school, then the school forwards it to me, and I end up with it anyway. So you might as well just cut out the middle people and just come straight to me. So just phone me if you've got a difficulty, and that'll be fine. Yes, Moodle, My UWS, or the self-service banner. So that's the link to self-service banner. Forget the My UWS and the Moodle for the moment. It doesn't apply to your level 7, I don't believe, anymore. Email. The university will send important communications via email, and some of the less important stuff too. Unfortunately, does become a bit of a drag checking your email every single day, because they do send a lot of nonsense. But obviously, this is how the lecturers actually contact you as well, and through other means as well. So I suppose if you're wanting a sort of more familiar student experience, things like LinkedIn, possibly Facebook, I have students messaging me on Facebook and things like that, I don't mind it. But if it's an official university communication, it will come through your email, and it should always be an official university communication. Now, one thing I will ask of you is, when you're sending an email to myself or any lecturer at UWS, make sure you use your original, your official university email address. Otherwise, if you use, I don't know, Jinty 1212 or whatever, like I've received recently, then it gets caught by the university firewall system and can actually never reach you. So make sure you use an official or at least a professional sounding address, okay, when you're sending things. That's one thing. Terms and trimesters, okay. Terms and trimesters are basically the same thing. So there are 3 terms, as we've said, October to January, February to May, and then the reset. Now, normally these consist of 12 weeks of teaching. Not always, it depends how the module is going. Generally, lecturers sort of listen to the students, and if they're wanting to spend the remainder of the last 3 weeks of the trimester working on courseworks and things like that, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of that wish. Then there's a sort of week for consolidation. There is also a readers week as well now that we're calling it, and we're calling it spring break in the second trimester anyway, and the sort of October holiday. There are supposed to be 2 weeks for, it says exams there. There are very, very few exams in computer games development. We're more or less done away with all of them. But there is a sort of period for getting in courseworks. I really don't, for my modules that I'm going to be running this year, I generally give people up until sometimes, the start of Christmas or something if they want to submit by then. It just really depends. And as I say, we'll have to play it by ear this year, but do make sure that you know exactly when assessments are supposed to be in. Okay. Timetables, 3 modules per term generally. Each module is usually a sort of single day and normally about a maximum of a 5-hour class. That was under the sort of normal run of things. But we're going to be running things sort of asynchronously in some of the modules now. So these are your core modules. So you've got no option but to take these, unfortunately. So you sort of notice that we have Introduction to Games Development. That's myself that teaches that one. And that runs in trimester 1. So I'll be getting in contact with all of you next week, October 5th to be precise. And I'll start populating the Aula system with all of the material for that. Yeah, it's quite a good module. I quite enjoy it, and we'll see what the assessment's going to be. So that's going to be running trimester 1. Programming with objects is also myself. That runs trimester 1 and 2. Again, I'll be getting in contact with you next week about that. Generally, I run that on a Thursday, so I would expect that start to populate the Aula system by the Thursday, and we'll just do some introductory lectures. Pretty much possibly like we're doing now. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to deliver the material. I might be prancing about in front of my television because I'm quite animated when I lecture anyway, and I really don't see why I should give that up because of COVID-19. So that's going to be trimester 1 and 2. Then there's the Creative Computing Professional. It's only a 10-credit module, so it runs for, I believe, 6 weeks as well. Then you've got, if you've taken, you've got Introduction to Computer Animation as well, so that's in trimester 1. I do realise that some of these sorts of overlap as well. I mean, you've got Programming with Objects, so that looks as if you're doing 4 modules in trimester 1. So try not to panic. The workload does sort of slightly balance out. This is 12 weeks. This is long and thin, and will be over the 2 trimesters or terms. This is only 6 weeks, the Creative Computing Professional, and then Introduction to Computer Animation is an animation module, so I don't really have much say on it, but it's trimester 1, so make sure you're doing it. And then Computing Systems is trimester 2, okay? But these are the ones that you must take and you must pass, okay? This is very important. I've highlighted this, that this in fact runs over trimester 1 and 2. It's a long, thin delivery. I'll try to give you as much sort of programming information as I possibly can. I haven't decided whether we're going to just do C# or C++ and C#. It will depend, but we'll see how things go and play things by ear. Okay. These are the optional modules. Sorry, it shouldn't say core here. These are optional, and you do have an option to take these, and you select one of these, whether that's Design for Interaction or 2D Computer Animation. These are in trimester 2, so apologies for the little error in that slide there. Right, modules appearing on the timetable this year are delivered synchronously online in the real time. So if they appear in the timetable, then that's all fine. Now, I've received, the university in general has received an awful lot of emails about modules disappearing from timetables, and that's okay this year. So if they're synchronous, they're online in real time, and you'll have to actually go to them in real time. But modules not appearing in the timetable are going to be delivered asynchronously, so not in real time. So essentially, the module coordinator will, you've got to check with the module coordinator how it's actually going to be run. Now, they will provide information in that first week or be in contact with you about how the module is in fact going to run. So for Introduction to Games Development and Programming with Objects, which you'll all be taking, I'll be in contact in due course to tell you how that's in fact going to be run. So essentially, I think it's just going to be a lecture with me going through the things, the concepts, and then of course some form of lab and practical work for you to attempt at home. And if necessary, then we can schedule meetings, etc., in order to get you through things. So the main thing is stay in contact with the lecturer, don't disappear. And even if you do disappear, I'll probably track you. There's only 19 of you in this first year anyway, so it's not really too bad. But the main thing is to keep in contact and make sure that you realise that asynchronously means it won't appear in the timetable, but that doesn't mean that you forget all about it and don't sit it. You've got to sit all these things, okay? So as long as you're clear about that. Okay. Now, how to be certain of your modules? If you go into the self-service banner system, you can go to the student section of it. I presume this is what you guys will see. I see a different sort of view of self-service banner because I'm a staff member. But anyway, you've got the ability to look at your student records, your online enrollment and your registration. Now, I would assume that it will pop up with all of your modules and it will say exactly, it will say T1 or T2 and whether that's running in trimester 1 or trimester 2. So just make sure that you know which modules that you're actually going to be going to. Now, because you're first years and you're all new to this, I don't want you to panic. I'm quite happy to give you all a phone or talk to you online and tell you exactly what you've registered for and exactly what you have to look out for. So there shouldn't be any calamities. There's only 19 of you, so it shouldn't be too difficult a process. Okay, so who's who? You've met me multiple times already. I'd imagine you're becoming quite bored of the topic. Anyway, that's me at the top there. The program leader, year 1 leader. I am the lecturer for programming with objects and the lecturer for introduction to games development, which is the best module you'll ever take. And then there's Dr. Gavin Baxter, who's the year 2 leader. You'll get to know him at some point as well. And he's a good guy to connect with on LinkedIn. And then there's Dr. Marco Gilardi there. He's the year 3 leader and he teaches games user experience and testing at sort of higher levels as well. And then I'm the year 4 leader again. And I teach serious games, which is games for educational purposes. So where is everything? That is a map of the campus. Should you ever need it, a tour of the campus. And if we ever get back into the campus, I'm sure it will be a thing. So that's the sort of aerial view. There's the staff offices there. There's the labs as well. I don't know how they got this, possibly from a drone. Eat here. That's the A block cafeteria. Do not eat there. Do not eat anywhere on the oh my god, the student union, eat and drink there, but God, do not eat there. I'm sure the food's lovely, but as you can see, my body's a temple. Enjoy the food there. Go to Cardosi's if you must eat anywhere, but I would imagine that's quite a high price anyway. There's the library and the coffee shop as well, so you can get some snacks there, and lectures. They say that lectures occur there. That's probably quite wrong nowadays. They occur everywhere, and it's quite a big campus to navigate. But anyway, modules can be delivered in a number of ways. It can be lectures, labs and tutorials, or lectures and labs. It just depends on the individual module coordinator. For myself this year, I'm just going to fire out a bunch of lectures, and then I may set up a quiz on the Aula system to test you on these things. Not test you, but make sure you're sort of engaging on it and making it interesting for you as well. And then we'll have some lab sessions. For the lab sessions, I kind of think I may make little videos for you to follow. And hopefully, you know, the first year should be very, very enjoyable and not particularly stressful. So it could be lectures, labs and tutorials, a combination of all of these things, but we have been told to be very, very creative this year, and I assume we will be. Well, I will be, so it'll be fine. Okay, so your timetable has to deal with these options, and you can have a look at your timetable. Obviously, some of you are worried because the modules have disappeared from the timetable, but all will be revealed in everything's fine. So generally in week one, there's no labs or tutorials. A lecture one is normally an introduction. For all of your modules or programming with objects, certainly an introduction to games development, it's normally just a quick introduction telling you what the assessment is and how the thing is actually going to be run. Okay. It will all be in the Aula system. Forget all about this Moodle malarkey on the slides. I think it will be a new system that they're introducing fairly soon. Well, you've got the email associated with it, but we will populate all of that. So the point is, just make sure that you're in contact with the lecturers all the time, and there shouldn't be any reason to worry. Okay, so moving on from that, there's personal development planning is taken quite seriously. It's probably best that as you go through your degree, that you do a great deal of personal development planning as well. A degree is really what you make for yourself. I mean, you can sort of go through and just pass all the modules and get a degree at the end, and that's it, and just go to companies and present your degree and hope. But it would be nice if you actually had some form of portfolio to show to employers, and we heartily recommend that you do that. And you can do that in a number of ways. You can do it with a blog, a YouTube channel, or LinkedIn, and we'll help you to do that. We have a strong emphasis on it, but yeah, we've got some industry sort of events and things that have always sort of taken place. I'd imagine that some of these will be happening possibly virtually next year, or possibly even in person, I suppose, if things get better. But we have a strong emphasis. We'll help you with these things as much as we can, and we try to give you a bit of promotion for your work, and hopefully that bolsters your ability to go into employment and makes the course very, very interesting for you as well. So you're actually showcasing your best work. Okay. Here's a creation of a portfolio website by Ross Kilpatrick. He is one of our graduates this year, and he's done very, very well. He's actually in the transfusion competition as well. So that's what his portfolio sort of looks like. Here's another example of a portfolio created by Leon Irving using ArtStation. Again, he's in the same team in the transfuser competition, so they're all doing very, very well with that. So the main sort of thing is to try and do little projects on the side, or if you've finished a good game for a module, then get it showcased and get it up there for employers to see. Okay. Use of Twitter, you can use Twitter as well. I'm not a great fan of Twitter, to be honest, but people use it to promote their work. I've personally used it to promote my work as well. Here's LinkedIn. This is Gavin Baxter. He's very, very, very into LinkedIn, and it would be worthwhile to sort of connect with him and connect with myself as well. And it's a more sort of professional mechanism for making connections and networks, because as you will probably realize eventually, it's not what you know, it is who you know, and it's all about the networking and who you can get to know, really. Okay. There's a Games Development Society run by one of our third year students. I think he's into third year now, Edward, and it's a very, very good. We want to promote a strong sense of citizenship throughout the program and make you guys feel at home. So we have a Games Development Society that you can join. It's good for building contacts, it's good for networking, it's good for sort of nights out as well, if game students have such things, and they're not just playing games, etc. But I mean, they have done a lot of sort of, good work, and there's been game jams with Glasgow University as well, and that's been very, very illuminating for me, because you think Glasgow University, the creme de la creme, we wouldn't sort of stand up to the scrutiny, but we did very, very well, and that's very encouraging for the course. So it's good to go and mingle with these people, because these people are in fact in higher sort of years levels where you're going to be eventually, and it's great to go and get in on the action, as they say. We do have a computer games development Twitter page, and we use it to promote the course. And here's an example of it just now. Tribulation by Feather Skull Studios. So Leon and Ross, who I mentioned earlier, are part of that sort of company, and they're entering Transfuser this year with that Tribulation game. And it really is a triumph, and I hope they win, because if they win, then this course is going to be more populated than ever, and it's going to be good. Engagement, normally the biggest indicator of engagement is in fact attendance, but we can't really monitor that this year because of COVID. So probably the biggest thing to do with engagement is, engage, try for an A grade and everything, try to work as hard as you can on things, do have a sense of responsibility about it, because in essence, you are being paid. Being a student is a little bit like, having a job. So you do get a loan, and you are being sort of slightly paid by the government in order to go and learn. So do sort of treat it like a job, because not too serious a job, right enough. I mean, do have fun with it, but do remember that, after a 4-year period, you may have to go out into the world of work. So do try to treat it with a degree of responsibility, and say that you're going to put aside 8 to 10 hours a day on a particular module or on a particular field of study that is going to advance your career. Okay, so students who scrape through with bare passes generally have difficulty the next year, because obviously it does get more difficult, progressively difficult. That's what the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework is. You're now at level 7, and when you get into level 8, it's going to be more difficult. The biggest sort of level of difficulty change that I've ever actually seen is probably when people move from honours to master's level, and that is a hell of a gear change. It's like going from the sort of old standard grade national 5s to higher or advanced higher. But anyway, people that scrape through with bare passes obviously are not going to do particularly well in the next year. So try to do more. Try to be disciplined. Presumably you're in this degree because you have some degree of joy from it, from developing games. And really, I mean, it should more or less be a labour of love than anything else. And actually, coming up with an implementation or developing a game shouldn't be too much of a chore for you. It should be more a fun exercise. So if you're finding that you're not enjoying it, come and have a word with me, and we can talk about, there are options about transferring to different courses if you're not happy. So do sort of bear that in mind as well. And it's okay. I mean, it's perfectly normal to come onto a course and realise, oh, this isn't really for me. But the main thing is to try and address it quickly. Okay, so the most successful students at university and in getting jobs generally have completed additional personal projects during their time, and that's where the Games Development Society and everything sort of comes into, game jams and all that sort of thing, and a bit of freelancing on the side if you're sort of good enough. Okay, assessment is generally a mix of coursework. It's generally practical coursework, class tests. There can be some exams. I suspect it will be a mix of coursework this year, practical coursework, generally using all the sort of game engines, perhaps. But we have been told to be very creative with assessments, so it could very well be focusing on the theoretical, and we are in uncharted waters here. So we don't really know what's going to happen with this virus or what's going to take place. So we have to make allowances for that. Some people may be sitting at home with very, very limited sort of resources, bad Wi-Fi connections, that sort of thing. And you can't expect them, to implement World of Warcraft while they're, stuck at home. So, I mean, that is something to sort of slightly consider. But as a mixture, there'll be some documentational aspects, there'll be some practical aspects, and we shall play that by ear. Okay, late coursework, yes, up to 1 week late is penalised at 10%, and later than that you can get a 0. Now, if you get 0 marks for something for non-submission, it can be a bit of a serious matter in terms of your progression. because then you could very well get no further attempts allowed at that module, which could mess up the degree. You've got to get all the core modules and the optional modules within the program specification in order to get the degree at the end. So you've got to make sure that you've got all of that sort of lined up. This is a game plan. So, I mean, submitting things late or not submitting things at all, it's not going to be particularly helpful. But, I mean, okay, you can be a little bit late, but do remember that the university does have a policy of penalising people 10% of their grade if they are late. Okay, so do that. Plagiarism, boring slide. Just don't do it. You can, if you plagiarize or you copy someone, then you can go through a horrible process. It's like a court case, it really is. So just don't do it. Just do your own work. Get started early. If you cite anything, make sure it's referenced properly. And that's the sort of main way to do it. It really is up to the individual academic whether they want to take you to a plagiarism panel. And I personally can't really be bothered with them. I would just give you a warning. But there are some lecturers that really love these things and want to attend plagiarism panels because it's the closest thing that they've got to Judge Judy. But just don't copy anything and do your own work. It's the way it goes. It's the best way. Grades. The following grading system is used across the university. So you get A1 90% or more, A2 80% or more, A3 70% or more. So these are all sort of excellent, outstanding, and exceptional. And basically, if you get a grade like that, then you're doing fantastically. Even B1, B2 is very, very good. When you get into the honours sort of year, B2 and above is a sort of reasonable distinction. So if you're getting B2s all the time, you get a 2-2 honours degree. If you're getting above A3, then you get a first class, if that makes sense. So these are very indicative and they're very, very specific as well. So you get to realise what particular category you're falling into fairly quickly. Okay, so that's the sort of grading system. So at least a C grade is required for 40% pass in all modules. In terms of categories of assessment, you need 30% in every category or component of assessment in order to pass. If you're starting to get D's and E's and C's for everything, then you need to have a discussion at least, or you might want to discuss a break from your studies. But I expect everyone will be doing A1, A2, A3, B1, B2. It'll be fine, I'm sure. So every mark that you get in your work is a bit of feedback. Generally, we tell you what the marking scheme is, the rubric. This is not a trick in any way, shape or form. A good lecturer, and we're all quite good lecturers because we're all on this programme, generally all of us, the full-time academic staff, are full-time or full fellows of the Higher Education Academy. So we've done a number of qualifications and how to set up assessments and how to teach you appropriately and how to make that very, very clear to you what's being asked of you. So it's not a trick scenario, and it's not go away and think about it yourself and all that sort of nonsense. So for my modules in particular, and I know for Gavin's modules and Marco's modules, that there is a very, very sort of strict prescriptive assessment sheet, and that's how everything is marked at the end. So you shouldn't have any difficulties with that. We tell you the marking scheme, the criteria, we give you detailed feedback. We generally all work through Christmas in order to sort of get that feedback back to you in a timely manner. So when we are talking to you about your grades and how you've done in an assessment, that is feedback. A mark is feedback because students don't necessarily know what feedback is. We didn't get any feedback. There's a common complaint that we always get when in fact we give feedback all the time. So we also kind of give general feedback in the form of answers, comments on particular class performance, and we've set up a number of quizzes, particularly in programming with objects. There's a class test which gives you instantaneous feedback about everything that's correct and the mark that you've got. Okay, so hopefully that all goes well. Your feedback to us is incredibly important. We always get, we want to improve these courses, ensuring a good student experience every single year. Essentially, I've got to attend many meetings, after the sort of NSS, so that's the National Student Survey, in order to see how things are going well and how things are going badly and how things can be improved. So there are also module experience questionnaires as well, so we can sort of narrow down where people have difficulties. And don't worry about these things. These are anonymized, and you can say exactly what you want. I will say that, constructive criticism and personal attacks are a different thing. So try not to, be too horrible to staff members by naming them and saying that they should die, etc., because we've had that sort of thing before. But anyway, yes, constructive criticism is always welcome, and you should be able to criticize the course because you're kind of paying for it. Okay? Equality and diversity, we have policies in place. Treat everyone with respect, regardless of religious beliefs, gender, racial, or sexuality. Any form of discrimination is not acceptable. I've got to say, I haven't really had to put up with or deal with any sort of bullying cases myself. So I think game students tend to be quite cool and quite accepting anyway. So I mean, it's not as if we've had a game student bully another game student at any point. I haven't seen it happen. And also on the same note, try to be respectful to members of staff as well. We're not monsters. We're trying to do jobs under sort of not difficult circumstances. Well, difficult circumstances. You will see one day once you get into a job that you've got a lot to do, and sometimes you do make mistakes, and not everyone can be perfect. So try and be respectful at all times, and we'll be equally respectful to yourselves, and everything will be fine. Okay. If things are going wrong, if you get illness or domestic problems, probably just come to myself, and we'll see what we can do, or your year leader. You can have a number of options: go to part-time, suspend your studies, but make sure that you keep people informed. We have had a number of students that sort of disappear, come back a year later and say, "So, what are my options?" Well, it would have been quite nice if you said that you were going to disappear for a start. So, I mean, we're all quite approachable, and we're wanting to help you as best we can. So if you're struggling with coursework and things like that, I'd imagine that the hints and answers, etc., are going to be quite easy this year, because I intend to make a bunch of videos and just fire them out there. And if you can't follow a video doing the coding and all that sort of thing, then I really don't know what else. I mean, there's Discord and things like that. So we're trying to help you as much as we can. But if you're having difficulties, then do say you're having difficulties. Don't pretend that everything's hunky-dory, and not bring it up. So keep people in. Failing assessments, it says it's not the end of the world. Actually, it is the end of the world. Try not to fail assessments. It's a bit of a pain, really. If you don't pass things, then you're not going to be able to progress. But I mean, it isn't the end of the world. There are reset mechanisms, and mistakes do happen. But if you fail things too often, then it can halt you in your progress. So if things are going a bit badly, then do seek help very early, and make sure that you're getting that help. Okay. But it's not the end of the world, even though I did kind of say it was. Okay, if something horrible does happen, and you're unfit or can't, there could be an accident or a bereavement in your family or something like that, or you may be very ill, there are extenuating circumstances that you can actually apply for in the self-service banner system. So you can do things like that, and you can appeal and things like that. So do familiarise yourself with these things in the off chance that it does sort of happen. And basically what happens with the extenuating circumstances is your grade gets nullified and you're allowed another attempt. Okay. Complaints. There is a bit of a complaints procedure. If you have a complaint with a member of staff or another student, then try to go down an informal route first, and we'll try to sort of deal with it. So there is a bit of a hierarchy. So go to the lecturer, the module coordinator, then the program leader, or perhaps the head of division after that. If you're wanting to put in, there are formal complaints that can be put in. So there's the information there. Excuse me, information there in the link. So you can actually put in a sort of formal complaint if you choose. But do bear in mind that if you put in a formal complaint, it's not as simple as I want this person fired because they said this to me. What does have to happen is that you have to represent and you have to more or less face the person eventually and say what you would like the resolution to be. So do bear in mind that if you put in a complaint, then you've got to see it through. Okay, so you can't just put in a complaint with a fake name, which has been done against me, by the way. You can't just put in a complaint with a fake name and expect to get me fired and run off into the horizon. It doesn't work that way, unfortunately. In fact, the last person that put in a complaint against me managed to get me promoted. So, never mind. Student support, there is a range of student support in terms of financial advice, emergency loans, enabling support, counselling, and basically, I mean, if you're having any difficulties at all, then come and speak to me and I'll point you to the right person or in the correct direction. Okay, let's see. There is a sort of general calendar for the university so that we can see all the holidays and stuff like that. Generally, the staff will be well clued up in when the holidays are because they'll be needing them by that point. So there is a calendar that you can see. Exam dates don't really apply to you very much, I don't think. There's the regulations and the forms for all these sorts of things. And then there's the student hub and student services as well. So that's the sort of general information stuff. So self-service banner is there. You've enrolled in your modules anyway, so you can probably know that, but there is the link for the self-service banner system. Okay, you have to do that every year. Funding, there is a sort of budgeting module as well, just to make sure that you handle your cash properly. Does anyone? Just better about 600 quid in gaming consoles, latest paycheck. So yes, there's a UWS budgeting module. I don't imagine I'm the best person to advise you on money because I have too much of it and I spend money like a drunken sailor. However, there you go. There's support for you. Right. Student representatives, we'll try to get a student representative. It's nice for, we have to have these people as a requirement, so one person will be selected for each year, and it's basically so we can have student staff liaison group meetings in order to improve the course and see how everyone's feeling, that sort of thing, and get good feedback on everything. So essentially, at some stage, I'll be asking you to nominate one of your brethren, someone from among you, in order to sort of speak for everyone, and they sort of go around and get all the issues if there are any. I'm not really entirely certain, if we need these in the games course. I mean, we are quite a sort of close course, if you're wanting to put it that way. And generally, I know what people's gripes are before we have these. And generally, the main gripe is about the sort of ITDS system at the university, the state of the machines, which I don't think we'll be using at least before Christmas. So anyway, we'll get a student representative. You can pick someone from amongst your classmates, and it looks good in your CV, and you get free pizza. But there's a website there. Okay. The library, I think the library will be open at some point, and it's a reasonable resource, I suppose. Generally, lecturers will order a number of library books for you to, go if you can't afford them or whatever. Go and get a loan of the book. So There's all the information on the library. As you can tell, the last time I set foot in the library was, I've been at the library quite a lot, particularly in the new Lanarkshire campus, because I'm writing a sort of thing at the minute. I find the library a good resource for research, not necessarily programming books and things like that, although there are a few, but generally we are sort of computing students, or computer games students, and generally we have other ways of getting, I shall say, implementational practical books, or those tutorials or whatever online. But all the information in the library is there, so that's good. Careers and skills, go and speak to there's a video about it, so go and speak to the people at careers when you can, and that can be a very sort of worthwhile thing. So there's a sort of YouTube channel there as well, so in order to plan what sort of particular career you're maybe wanting to go into. I mean, you may wish to do a degree in computer games development, work in the games industry, you may want to be a programmer, you may not have worked it out yet, and that's entirely okay. But these people are there to sort of sculpt and help your development. So what now? Basically, you just have to sort of wait for the module coordinators to contact you. Make sure that you're enrolled in the correct modules. You will be enrolled in the correct modules. But what I would probably like to do as your program lead is to at least speak to every one of you to make sure that you are in the correct modules, that you know, well, that you know what modules you're supposed to be sitting at this particular time in terms of trimester and what to expect. I suspect that module coordinators will have been in contact with you, so it's essential to keep in contact with them or keep an eye on your email and all that sort of thing, and make sure that you know that you're sitting this and this particular term, just to make sure that there's no screw-ups and we don't get to the end of the term and someone says, oh, I missed the module, and that upsets the progression. Okay, so I think it would be valid to do that.